Today we're going to be working on graphing sine and cosine. So let's graph one full period of each function and then find the following. So first let's start off with sine. Now as we're going around your unit circle, to kind of visualize the first portion, so just with sine and cosine, I'm just going to be using your unit circle so you can see that where we're getting these values. So when it comes to your sine graph, when it's talking about your amplitude, right, it's just saying as we're traveling around the unit circle, how high can your waves be? Well, in our case, that information is found right in front of your sine here, in which case it's 1. This one is referring to the 1 from your y values. Sine is all about your y values. So the highest and the lowest part of your wave is going to be at 1. So your amplitude here is 1. Now, in case it is a negative value, it's always, so take down here, for example, this -1. If we're talking about the height of each wave, height can't be negative, right? So it's always going to be the absolute value of that particular value. So in our case, your waves are going to be reaching 1. Now, when it comes to your period, right, to make one full revolution around your unit circle, how much have we traveled? Well, we've gone a whole unit of 2 pi to go around the unit circle. So now when we go to graph your first period, we're going to be taking these y values. So notice that your first y value here, we're starting at 0. And when we transfer it onto the coordinate plane, right, we're still working with 0, 0 here. So our first value here is at 0. Then as we travel along, we could certainly graph these values, but what I'm going to be starting to graph are some of these more important values. So then from 0, we go all the way up to 1, and that happens at pi over 2. So if let's say this right here is pi over 2. So at pi over 2, we're going to go all the way up to, let's call this right here, 1. And then at our next most important point, we're going to go all the way back to 0 here at pi. So your next value here is pi. Let's say these are increments of pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, or 4 pi over 2, 4 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. And then we're back at pi here at 0. And then your next most important point here is at that -1 that you're seeing, and that happens at 3 pi over 2. So again, 3 pi over 2 is here. We're going to go all the way down to -1. And then all the way back to our 0, which in our case is a full rotation of 2 pi. You'll notice here is at 0. Right here. All the way back here at 2 pi. So when we go to connect your dots, notice that sine starts down low and starts to come up high. Oh, let me redo that one. So when we talk about your period is one full rotation about your unit circle. So it goes from the bottom up to your first wave, complete your first wave, down to your first or second wave, complete your first wave or second wave. So this, you should have 2 full waves here, and that is considered your period. Now we can go and travel in the opposite direction. So the opposite direction would be clockwise. So in our case, instead of having 3 pi over 2, this is just -pi over 2, and then -pi, -3 pi over 2, and then -2 pi. We're only going to be graphing one full period today, but if we wanted to, we could certainly redo it on the other side. This would be -pi over 2, -pi, -3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And again, this was your period of 2 pi, and the amplitude is the height of each wave. So the height of each wave is 1. Now let's go ahead and graph cosine. So graphing cosine, and again, I'm going to be taking our unit circle here one more time and using it to our advantage so that we can go ahead and graph. Okay. Now cosine, when it comes to cosine, we're talking about your amplitude once more. So your amplitude, again, is the height of each wave. Now your cosine being your y value or your x values are still going to be an amplitude of 1. That information, again, is going to be found right in front of your cosine. So our amplitude is 1. Our period to travel all the way around the unit circle is going to be the same as sine. So again, same as 2 pi. Now, when we travel with cosine, again, we're only going to be plotting these special points here. So only these first 5 points that we're going to be seeing. So taking your x value of each. So we start up high at 1 when we start at 0. So at 0, again, we're going to start up high at 1 all the way here. And now your next nice point is at pi over 2 when your x value is at 0. So at pi over 2 here, we're going to be at 0. At pi, we're at -1. So pi, we're all the way down here at -1. And notice how that I'm labeling nice and neat as to where my values are going. That is what I would be expecting of you guys in the future. At pi over, or 3 pi over 2, we're back at 0. And then to complete our full rotation, we're going to go back to 1. Instead of at 0, we're now at 2 pi. So 1 full rotation here. Oops. 1 full rotation at 2 pi. So connecting our dots. And these graphs continue on, so make sure that we are putting in arrows. Same thing over here. They are continuous functions or continuous functions. Again, if we wanted to go in the opposite direction, we certainly can. So we're going to come down low here. There we go. So yeah, that is sine and your cosine graph. And again, your amplitude is the completeness of each wave. So right here, or sorry, your period is 1 full revolution about your unit circle. And then your amplitude is the height of each wave. So the height of each wave here is 1. Now I'm gonna continue this video. I'm gonna start a new video where we talk about when we're graphing these functions, and we're gonna see these values over here. So the very next video will just be a little bit more in depth on how to graph using transformations. But if this is all you needed, that is perfect. We just talked about how to graph sine and cosine just as is, traveling around your unit circle.